Have you ever been in a situation where you felt you had to do the right thing, even if you knew it wasn't going to lead to the best outcome? Well, today we're diving into that exact feeling. We're exploring the powerful and sometimes really tricky world of deontological ethics. It's all about the ethics of duty. You know, this really gets to the heart of so many of our toughest choices, right? Should we judge what we do based on the consequences, on the results we get? Or is there something about the action itself, something just inherently right or wrong about it, that matters more? And that's exactly where deontology comes in. The whole idea is that our moral obligations, our duties, are what's most important. It says that some actions are just morally required or forbidden, period, no matter what happens next. And to really get a handle on this, we're going to look at two of its biggest thinkers, Immanuel Kant and W.D. Ross. So first up, we have the towering figure of Immanuel Kant. Now, what Kant wanted to do was put morality on a totally secure foundation. One that wasn't based on, shifting feelings or unpredictable results, but on something solid, pure reason. For Kant, everything starts with what he called the good will. And it's a pretty profound idea when you stop and think about it. He says that things we normally think of as good, like being smart or courageous or even happy, aren't always good. I mean, a courageous, intelligent person can do terrible things, right? The only thing that is good with no ifs, ands, or buts is the good will. And what's really key here is the motive. The goodwill is all about your intention to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do, because it's your duty. Kant says even if you try your absolute best to do good and you fail completely, that goodwill still shines like a jewel, because its value was never in the results, it was in the trying itself. And this leads us to a really crucial distinction he makes. Okay, imagine a shopkeeper. He always gives customers the correct change. Is he being moral? Well, Kant would say, hang on, it depends on why he's being honest. If he's doing it because he thinks, hey, this is good for business, people will come back, then he's acting in accordance with duty. It looks good on the outside, but it has no real moral worth. But if he's honest simply because he believes it's his duty to be honest, that's when the action is truly moral. So, if it's all about duty, how in the world do we figure out what our duties actually are? Well, Kant gives us a tool. He calls it the categorical imperative. Think of it like a universal stress test for any moral rule. It's categorical because it's supposed to apply to everyone, everywhere, no exceptions. So let's run a test using Kant's own example. Step 1, you state the rule you're thinking about following. Kant calls this a maxim. It's just your personal rule of action. So in this case, your maxim is, when I'm in a tight spot for money, I'll promise to pay it back even though I know I can't. Okay, step 2. Now you have to imagine what the world would actually look like if this rule became a universal law. What if everyone, everywhere, was allowed to make lying promises whenever they needed cash? And here's where it all falls apart. In a world where everyone makes false promises, the whole concept of a promise just collapses, right? It becomes meaningless. Nobody would believe a promise anymore, which means you couldn't even make one to begin with. Your own rule self-destructs. It's irrational. And for Kant, if it's irrational, it's morally wrong. Kant also gave us another angle on this, another way to phrase the same core idea. He said we must always treat people as an end, and never merely as a means. Basically, this means every person has dignity and worth just by being a person. You can't just use them as a tool to get what you want. We have to respect them as individuals, an idea that's pretty much the foundation for our modern concept of human rights. Okay, Kant's system is incredibly powerful, but you can probably see a problem here, right? What do you do when your duties clash? Kant's rules are absolute. He famously argued you must always tell the truth, even to a murderer at your door asking where your friend is hiding. And for a lot of us, that just feels wrong. It's too rigid. And that exact problem is what brings us to our second philosopher, W.D. Ross. He was also a deontologist. He agreed that duty was key, but he wanted to build a more flexible system that could actually handle the messiness of real life. Ross's big idea is something called a prima facie duty. Now, prima facie is just Latin for at first glance, and that's what these duties are. There are general moral obligations that seem binding on the surface, but they aren't absolute. In any real situation, we have to weigh them, and sometimes one duty is just going to be more important than another. So Ross came up with a list of these duties. Things like fidelity, which is your duty to keep promises. Beneficence, the duty to do good for others.
justice, the duty to be fair, and non-maleficence, which is a great one, the duty to simply not harm other people. These are all the moral ingredients we're working with in any situation.
So how does this actually work? Well, imagine you promise to meet a friend for coffee. That's your duty of fidelity. But on the way, you witness a car accident and you're the only one around who can help. That's your duty of beneficence. Ross would say, come on, it's obvious. Your duty to help in that moment totally overrides your duty to meet your friend. We use our judgment and our moral intuition to figure out our actual duty in that specific context.
All right, so we've got Kant's strict universal rules and Ross's more flexible situational ones. Let's throw a real-life dilemma at them and see what happens. This is a tough one. We've all been there, or somewhere close. You have this feeling of loyalty, this duty to help your friend. But at the same time, you have a duty to be honest, to be fair to everyone else.
So how would our guys handle this? Well, for Kant, it's pretty much a no-brainer. The rule, I will cheat to help a friend, just can't be universalized. It would destroy the whole point of exams and trust in education. It's always wrong, period. Ross, though, gives us a little more breathing room. He'd say, okay, let's weigh the duties. You've got the duty of fidelity to your friend versus the duties of justice and honesty. Now, he'd almost certainly conclude that cheating is wrong, but his way of thinking at least acknowledges that genuine conflict you're feeling.
Okay, we've looked at these really powerful ideas about duty from Kant and Ross, but now let's turn this around for a second and think about you. Seriously, when you make a moral choice, what's really driving the bus? Is it that nagging sense that you just ought to do something no matter how you feel? Or is it more about compassion? Or maybe you're calculating what's going to produce the best outcome for everybody involved. There's no wrong answer, it's just worth thinking about. And think back on your own life for a minute. Can you remember a time when keeping a promise was really hard? Or telling the truth when a lie would have been so much easier? A time you took the hard path just because you knew it was the right one. That feeling, that's the core of what deontology is trying to capture. And really, that's the final takeaway. Whether you lean more towards the strict logic of Kant or the careful judgment of Ross, the challenge is the same. Deontology asks us to look past what's convenient, past our own feelings and past the immediate results, and to find the strength to do what's right, not because it's easy, but simply because it's our duty.